Loki Season 2 was amazing and literally took my breath away. Let's talk about it. What's going on, guys? It's your boy Ty, and today in this video, I'm going to be reviewing Loki Season 2 in a long rant style video because, wow, there is so much to talk about, especially after that finale. I've got to say, feels good to finally say that a Disney Plus show absolutely stuck the landing, and God, that just makes me so happy because that's been such a common issue with every single Marvel Disney Plus show. Alright guys, so like I mentioned already, this is going to be just an unedited, uncut rant, just going to be going over all of my thoughts for Loki Season 2 because wow, I am so impressed with this season. For starters, I just want to make this clear. I honestly think Loki Season 2 is even better than Loki Season 1. And that is absolutely to my surprise because Kate Herron, or Herron, I'm not sure how to say her name still, I keep messing it up. She directed Loki Season 1, but then she left and she wasn't going to continue to do Loki Season 2. So they brought in new directors. That absolutely worried me because I loved Loki Season 1 and I was thinking, oh God, what if these new guys don't even know what they're doing? I think they did an even better job than she did. Because it feels like there's actually like this directorial flair in here, like they did something and that it wasn't just made by like a corporate studio. The way that the shots are, the cameras that they're using, where it just looks grainy and it looks more of like an indie film than like a TV show like that, those like blue kind of lighter lighting approach, if you could say. I don't know how to explain it, but almost like the way that the first Avengers movie looks, where people kind of joke that that looks like a TV movie, and honestly I can't blame them because the color grading looks off. But everything in here just looks so aesthetically pleasing. The lighting's right, the color grading's right, the editing, the shots are unique compared to our typical boring, MCU shots, whatever. They actually did their thing with this and they put some creativity into it, and you can tell. And I'm not even talking about the plot or the story yet. I'm just talking about the way everything looks. I'll probably get into it a little bit more later, but yeah, I just am taken back that these people actually were able to build on what Kate Herron even did. And they did a better job. Don't get me wrong, though. You got to give your flowers to her, though, because obviously she's the one that set all this up. She made the TVA. She made this. She started this journey. But wow, Loki Season 2, again, before I get into the details, is absolutely phenomenal. Where do I even start with this? First of all, I would almost argue, because I figured, you know what, maybe it's good to start on some of the bad things. I only have, I want to say, two bad things with this season. First of all, I think that episode 2 specifically, that was the episode where Loki and Mobius are like going after the actor guy whose name was like Brad. I feel like that episode was a little bit odd and we kind of just jumped into it and it didn't really make that much sense for most of the episode. It felt like we were missing an episode before that because there was no explanation as to what they were doing and why. And even by the end of the episode, things weren't really made that clear. So I feel like that was a bit of an odd standout episode, like an outlier. But at least it was episode 2 and not like episode 5 because I'd rather you stick the landing. Also, I feel like the story at times, as much as I loved it, did get a little bit confusing just when it comes to like, how do I word this? The details and the exact little things that were going on with all the science and this and that behind what Obi's doing and Victor Timely. Like I kind of understood it by the time we got to the end of the season with like the loom and how we have to try to expand the rings so that time can flow through it. It started to make sense, but at first I feel like I was kind of confused for like 2 episodes as of what they were really trying to do, what Renslayer was doing with Victor Timely and why they needed his machine. Again, I almost felt like I was trying to learn the science as the characters were, but they were learning it and I wasn't, but that might just be on me. Those are my 2 main things that I would say are like my issues, if you even want to call them issues. Other than that, the story for this season is pretty simple. I feel like it took a little bit for me to actually understand where it was going. Maybe like the 3rd episode where you really are like, oh, okay, this is what the season is going to be about with the Loom and Victor Timely and how Kang ties into all this. Things started to make sense. But this is a season where, for the most part, I feel like it isn't even really about Loki. I would argue that 2/3 of this season, episodes 1 to 4, were barely even really involved with Loki. It was more about the TVA and the other characters. But those final 2 episodes were so focused on Loki when it mattered and when it needed to be, and the way that it was able to write his character and show all these themes about him, which I'll get into in a second, was astonishing. And I mean, this is really something that is so rare for the MCU nowadays, and this really gave me that good MCU feeling like, wow, the MCU just made a good project again. It's pretty funny that, and it's almost ironic that they pretty much dropped this on the same day as the Marvels, which I thought was like a really terrible film. If you want to go watch my review, you can check that out. But yeah, Loki season 2 was just phenomenal. Speaking of that finale, like those last 2 episodes, okay? This is the thing. Loki's been going on this journey about glorious purpose and, getting the throne throughout all the MCU movies, and even the first season of Loki, kind of talking about it. And, he's always been this mischievous person who, he'll turn his back on, like, the people that he loves, this, that. But we finally get to really see what Loki's glorious purpose was. He finally got his throne, but at what cost? At the cost of sacrificing, essentially, his happiness and himself for his friends. I saw this thing where the quote that he said to Mobius and Sylvie, like his last thing was like, for you, for all. Or maybe it was for all, for you. That's the same thing he said to Odin at the end of Thor 1. And I didn't notice that. I just saw it on Twitter. And I was like, wow, the way that they're really taking things from 12 years ago, from Thor 1, and they're still continuing his character arc this far into the future is incredible. And it feels like we hit such a nice landing and such a great conclusion. The guy who is always, turning his back on people, who had his fake death like 3 times with Thor, whatever, turned his back on Thor. He was like, you know what? I want all of you to be happy. I want you guys to get your lives, and I'm going to sacrifice myself for that. So that we could beat Kang, and so that we could, give everyone free will. Give everyone rights and just the ability to make their own decisions. They don't want to just be locked up in the TVA and all that. I thought that was just beautiful. The glorious purpose, his purpose is finally fulfilled, and he finally gets his throne. Wow. And it's not even like the one that he wanted, all that. It's just, wow, things are really getting deep here. Talking specifically about the finale, I've got to say, the reason that this episode is so good, it's not because it has amazing action sequences, it's because of the dialogue and because of Loki himself. Tom Hiddleston is at his absolute peak in Loki Season 2. His acting's off the charts. In this finale, there's like these long one takes where he's just spitting out all this information. The plot gets even more sophisticated than we even expected it to, going all the way back to Season 1's finale and seeing that Kang's basically saying, hey, you have to like kill Loki or else, whatever, there's no other way. And then the way that he's able to work his way around this by going back in time, going back to the conversation he had with Mobius, it's so cool. It's just awesome. It's great storytelling. I'm very much of a storytelling-centered guy. That's what I should say. Character study movies and projects I do love. I get that this is kind of a character study on Loki, but I love good stories. And the plot here, the way that it was able to mix a character study with still a very intriguing, awesome plot, that's why I think this just worked. There wasn't a moment where things were boring and things were stupid. It had great side characters. Everything came together and it was cohesive. That's what I loved about it. The way the music flowed in the beginning sections. And then again, going into those long takes where like Loki knows what's going on because he's already been to that situation. Who knows how many times, but everyone else is like, what's going on here? I think it actually executed time travel well. And especially with Tom Hiddleston's performance, where again, he's rattling also off all this information. You can see that he's changed because he's experienced things so many times in a row now. It's impressive. And God, his line delivery is just awesome. And the way you're able to see his emotions in his eyes, I mean, he's sad. And you could just see that because he really cares about everyone. He doesn't want all this stuff to happen. I love the fact that we got to see everyone's life on the timeline. We got to see Mobius with his jet ski, business there that he works at. He has his family. And then at the end, when he's just sitting there staring at his house, the fact that he's just like, you know what? I'm just going to let the time pass. That's what he wants to do. Because now he has the free will. He can make the choice to let time pass. He's not taking time for granted anymore. He's happy that he gets to experience time. In the TVA, you don't get to experience time. You have all your memories wiped. You don't even know who you are, really. Now, he gets to do whatever he wants. And I feel like in a way, him saying let the time pass, it's like hopefully one day he could see Loki again. I don't really know, but it's kind of like they're both alone now and they were such great friends together, and that's really upsetting because in a way, even though Loki's obviously the main focus here, he's the one that was left alone. It feels like Mobius is also the one that was left alone to an extent, because now B-15 is kind of like running the TVA in a more, sanctioned order where things are, not going to be all corrupted and stuff. And Sylvie's kind of just on her own again. So, yeah, I just really like the way that it left us off, where I wasn't like wanting more, or I wasn't thinking like, oh, this is leading us or hinting at something stupid for the future or setting up a future project. No. This was a good, self-contained story that, again, wasn't really trying to set up anything well, but at the same time, I actually think it did set up things well. So I know that's kind of contradicting, but I'm just saying I feel like it closed this chapter while also leaving nice loose ends. Speaking of loose ends, we have to talk about Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror, as Victor Timely. He honestly took me back in this. He took my breath away. The way he had this nerdy energy with that, like the stutter kind of that he had, and he has like this energy where he's all like, oh, he's saying all this information and spitting out all these formulas and this, that. I loved his look, the Victor Timely look, and I'll get into the set design and stuff in a minute, but yeah, I think that he was awesome in this, and I think that he did what he was supposed to do when he's playing Victor Timely and when he's playing He Who Remains. He has this sense of dread that he's able to portray over other characters to where they feel like, oh god, this guy is really dangerous. Even when it's Victor Timely, I feel like, people are joking around with him. They're kind of like, whatever, you're nobody. But they do realize his importance in all this, the bigger picture. And that's something that Loki also talks about with Kang, about how you have to look at, the big picture here, and how that's what Mobius also talks about with him. Wow. I mean, there's just so much thematically rich subject matter in here that I could almost go on for days talking about it, but I'm trying to think of what else to talk about here. Obi, Ki-Hu Kwan, hopefully I'm saying his name right. Please don't crucify me. He was great in this. I'm so happy that he wasn't just in like episode 1 or like episode 2. I forgot which one that he was in. I think he was in episode, he was in episode 1. I'm so happy that he was actually a main character throughout the whole season. It was amazing to see him in there. He's quirky in like the best way possible, not in like a bad way. He has that charm, that childlike energy, and I think that brought something different, because everyone in the TVA I feel like is relatively serious, except maybe Casey, who, you don't really see that much, but he's kind of like the antithesis of them, where he's kind of just jumping around. He's like, hey guys, what's going on? And everyone's all serious. They're like, oh my god, we're all going to die practically. Also though, when he does get serious, it's pretty funny, because I feel like when he says something like, oh my god, we're all going to die, it still comes off as funny just because of who he is. But yeah, all the plot intricacies here as well were awesome. I loved Loki's time travel stuff, where there's that one episode where Loki has to go back in time to talk to Obi to give him, I guess you could say, I don't want to say the recipe, but like the instructions to make the thing that they need for the loom. Then he goes back to the present. Then he already made the object. I mean, you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm not the best at describing that, but I mean, it's so cool the way that they were able to use time travel. The way that when the phone's ringing near the elevator and then Sylvie's coming out of it, Loki's the one that prunes himself. What? I mean, they really thought this through. Speaking of being thought through, though, this script is very tight. And the reason that that's pretty much been confirmed from everyone that's been making it is that this is the first MCU show or project ever that has had no reshoots. They wrote the script, they got it, greenlit, whatever. They shot the show, edited it, and they said, okay, this is it, we're done. They didn't go back and say, oh, we have to add in this scene, oh, we have to rework this. And honestly, that's even more impressive, especially with all the Jonathan Major stuff going on. Like, they don't want to take him out, put him back in, whatever. It was just awesome because of that. And it shows that you don't need to be doing all this reshoots for like 5 months all the time. You can just make a good script to start with, and you won't have to be going back in these Marvel or like MCU shows or series. I mean, no, MCU shows or series. MCU shows or movies, and just fixing everything, after the movie's already been shot. It's stupid, and it doesn't make the movies feel as, just good, I guess you could say, because it feels like they're just scrapped together. Those last few minutes of the finale were just breathtaking. Again, I mean, the way that we got to see Loki transform into what's essentially the god of stories. I saw that was like a comic thing where he's grabbing all the timelines. It felt so powerful. And again, there wasn't even really like an action sequence or anything. It was just the way that the music was mixed so well with the shots. That was mixed so well with the way that Loki looked, where he transformed into his costume, and that he knew what he needed to do in that moment while everyone watched him be essentially the hero of the day. It was so amazing, and that makes you emotional, especially because we've been on such a long ride with this character. I haven't really gotten emotional over the MCU in a while, but this one honestly really brought some emotions out of me, and I was like, wow, Loki's finally at sort of what you could say is his peak. He's at the end of his story. And I just think what they were able to do with this character that pretty much just died off at Endgame was amazing. And I love the fact that the director said Loki season 1 is like the first half of a book. Loki season 2 is like the second half, and there isn't going to be a chapter 3. I don't think we need a season 3. I think that would be stupid. I feel like his arc perfectly closed off. I feel like everything ended nicely. I don't know why we would even need like anything else, you know? Maybe we'll see stuff in like movies regarding the TVA, like how Deadpool 3 apparently has the TVA in it. Now that it's restored, that actually makes sense. But yeah, I just don't want to see like this story continue. I don't want to see this. Going back to what I was talking about like a while ago at this point, the set design, the characters, the way everything looked was just perfect. It really felt, again, more like an independent studio made this than Marvel Studios and Disney. The way that the shots were kind of grainy, everything felt more raw. There was shaky cams, there was, you know, dolly cam, like just everything, any type of shot you can think of, it was in this season. The CGI looked actually good. The color grading was great. Color grading goes a long way. I don't think people realize. And the most important thing to me, in a way, just when it comes to aesthetics, the music. The music was phenomenal. And I know that they're also reusing the Loki like theme from season 1 too, but it's about where you put certain music. It's about the way that it's edited. And the way that they put the music at the end of Loki Season 2's finale, when he's walking there, just got me, man. And also in the beginning of the finale where he's doing all these crazy things and he's trying to, you know, figure out the right sequence of events that he could put together so that they could actually stop the loom from, like, overloading or whatever. It's just these little creative details, these little things that give me hope about the future of the MCU. And I've just got to say, Loki Season 2, honestly, was just masterful. Overall, I'd probably give this season, I want to say like a 9 or a 9.5 out of 10. I'd probably give Loki season 1 like an 8.5 out of 10, give or take, because I feel like there was like one filler episode, like I think it was episode 3, where they're just like going to that other planet. But yeah, guys, overall, this was truly an amazing season of not just MCU television. I do think that this was a really great a really great normal television show. And I think that says a lot, and that goes a long way, because again, this doesn't feel like super, you know, superhero-y or anything like that. It doesn't feel super Disney. It doesn't feel super Marvel. It just feels like a good science fiction project with time travel and a cool aesthetic, like I was saying, and great character work. That's what matters at the end of the day. And again, going back just onto maybe like a couple more details I want to throw in here before I end this rant. Some other things that I liked is I liked seeing everyone's lives. I liked how Casey was Frank Morris from Alcatraz. That's super cool. B-15 was a doctor. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Mobius with his jet ski. Really nice to see. Obi and how he was the guy who was trying to like sell the books, but he couldn't, and he was kind of like this great scientist. That was also great. And the way that this all tied together, the way that it was about how all the people around Loki is what was really important, and how he was able to control time when he flicked his hand and he could go back and forth and control the time slipping. Those are the things that really give me faith, again, for the future of the MCU, and that gives me faith for these directors, which I hope get to work with Marvel more, because, wow, they did such a great job. But yeah, guys, I feel like this also relates in a way to Asgard, and the way that Asgard isn't just a place, it's about the people. I feel like that's what the quote is, something like that. That's what this reminded me of, how I feel like Loki is also here realizing it's about the people, not the place. Because I feel like he was trying to bounce around all that, and he realized that the people around him are what's really important to him. And again, at the end, he was willing to sacrifice everything and lay everything down on the line for them. So yeah, guys, that's going to just about do it for this rant today. I absolutely loved Loki Season 2. I probably forgot to mention some stuff, but at the same time, I'm going on and on for so long. And, you know, naturally, I'm going to forget things. Again, I'm going to be doing one of these for the Marvels as well pretty soon in the next upcoming days. So yeah, if you want to subscribe, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next video.